everyone. The topic of today's discussion is from survival mode to soul aligned work. We are here with a lovely guest, Latrenta Smith, the owner of Plants Over Toxins. And I'm here with my summit co host. We are both co hosts, co founders of the Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black Women, coming up totally online May 16th through 18th. But Latrentis attended our first summit last year in 2024. And so we're going to be talking about her experience, her business that she has now launched, and all the things in between. But if you don't know me, my name is Marissa Price. I am a social worker. I'm a healing practitioner, work with Black women to recover, to heal from toxic, traumatic work experiences. And this channel is for us to share resources, knowledge with each other as we collectively heal from a lot of the things that we have experienced. And I'll pass it over to my summit co-host, Dr. Kamani, to introduce herself.
Thank you, Marissa. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Kamani. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I've been licensed for over 20 years. I'm a toxic job survivor, but more importantly, I'm a toxic job liberator for Black women. And I'm excited to be here to talk about the experiences of being at the summit. Marissa and I have talked about it. We planned for it, but for you to actually hear from someone, a Black woman who actually attended the summit. So excited to be here and hear the story today about the wonderful, wonderful summit.
Yes. So, Latrentis, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, whatever feels comfortable, telling us about your business, Plants Over Toxins. I will put some of the links in the chat. Yeah, and just anything about your background that you want to share.
Thank you so much, ladies, both of you, for having me. It's so exciting to come and give back in this way. I really appreciate the opportunity. I'm Latrenta Smith, and I'm the creator of Plants Over Toxins. And it is a holistic healing space that I created for women so that we could focus on the entire healing process. And I'm specifically addressing chronic illness and reproductive trauma. My background is over 20 years as a licensed nurse, and now I am a certified health coach, and I'm also a birth doula. So that solidifies my focus on reproductive health. And I've actually pivoted since my original business kicked off last year when I only focused on the reproductive trauma part and energetic healing. But I came
Mm-hmm.
to find over this year with my clients that we need to focus on the whole body and releasing the toxins that contribute to the physical barriers as well.
I love that. Yeah, and the pivot that you've made. I think that's so important when you mentioned that, like getting to the deeper roots of reproductive health. In the post that you've been sharing for, I think it was Black Maternal Health Week
Yeah.
on LinkedIn, those have been so impactful and so important. I had a panel discussion on my channel about this topic, right? As we see like the health disparities and the things that Black women experience giving birth, with our reproductive health in the society that is the United States, right? It's so
Right.
important. So thank you so much for the work that you do. I just linked your YouTube channel in the chat. So please subscribe to Latrentis' channel, Plant Based Health Coach.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. And Dr. Kamani, if you want to take the.
Sorry. Okay. So you told us a little bit about your business. Can you tell us maybe how you came into the summit? What was kind of your mindset about, like, maybe what inspired you to register, and how were you coming into the summit? What was like your mindset coming into the summit?
That is a great question because it just leads me to go back to a place that's totally different from where I am now in my mindset. And I'm really happy about that. So this time last year, or I would say it started in April. As a matter of fact, it started at the end of March. I was working as a man, I cannot remember my title, nurse case manager. And it was actually up until the end of March, my dream job. It was my dream job. As it was the job that I sat at the beginning of my nursing career and said, if I ever come to make this amount of money, it would be crazy. I exceeded that salary it allowed me to reach the client population that I really love serving, which was an underserved population.
Mhm.
Um, it was just really my dream job in every way. And one of the biggest highlights about it was that I was hired as far as the interview panel. It was an interview panel of about 6 or 7 people, and most of them were my mid-level and upper-level superiors. About
Mhm.
70% of the panel was Black women. This was a very large hospital organization, but they really had people who looked like me in place in senior positions.
Mhm.
And at the time, I didn't know well, I guess I knew how reassuring that was for me to
Mhm.
see. And it made me even more comfortable in the role. Um, so I fast forward about 10 months after I started in that job,
Mhm.
I was in a meeting one day,
Mhm.
and most of the women that I just mentioned were in that meeting. And about 10 minutes later, I got an urgent jump on this emergency meeting
Mhm.
email notice. I came on the meeting and it was only myself and a few other people on the meeting. And they had fired within that 10 minutes, they had fired all of those women very
Oh.
unexpectedly. It was a
Mhm.
total shock.
Mhm.
We're speaking director of pharmacy, um, VPs. It was it was crazy. And they left no one in their place. So there was just extreme disruption. And after that, that was March. The summit last year was it in May or early
It was
June?
May. It was May.
Yes, ma'am. Mhm.
Yeah. So by the time I got to May, I had lived from March until the summit in this zombie-like state because I couldn't process what had happened
Mhm.
um, with the tools that I had to do so. Because I
Yeah.
went from like a dream job, being so happy to not understanding what had just happened. And I will backtrack and say that prior to that happening in March, I had started to receive over and over again because I follow you guys on social media. So I had received a lot of invites to the summit, but I was like,
Mhm.
oh, my job is great. No need for that. And so
Mhm.
I would keep receiving them, but never sign up. After that happened, it was like I knew that I had been prepared by receiving those invitations to
Mhm.
join. And so it felt more urgent. And I went ahead, of course, and joined because I knew after that that it was completely appropriate for me.
Yeah. So I heard several things. One was the job started off as a dream job. Then
Hmm.
the whole circumstance turned into a nightmare, like woof, just like
Mhm.
that. Unexpected. So that's traumatic. So the shock of that. The other thing is that you had been watching me and Marissa. You knew about the summit, but you're like, oh, that doesn't relate to me. I'm in this dream job. But then when you're like, wait a minute, I need some support, then you say, wait a minute, I remember about the summit. And then that's when you registered.
Exactly.
Okay. And tell us just a little bit about as you were coming into the summit last May, what was your mindset as you were coming into the summit?
I was a zombie. Actually, that experience, I wasn't just a zombie at work. And when I say I was a zombie, it numbed me. I, I
Mm,
just
Mhm.
I just didn't understand what was happening, but I felt numb in the sense that most especially at work, my work performance, some days I would just sit there. I honestly could not, and I pride myself on productivity
right.
and, all of those things.
Mhm.
I just couldn't do it. It was completely like shell shock, and I could not figure out why up until then, I hadn't had an experience, firstly, where work impacted my entire life in such a big way. And
Okay.
then, secondly, where I just couldn't push myself to keep going in any way, work, personal, I was just stuck.
Yeah. And you were able to identify that it was the job situation that contributed to this change in how you're functioning, right?
I was only because that was the only thing that was happening.
Yes.
Um, nothing else, nothing else substantial had happened in my life, so I knew it was that. I
Yeah.
just couldn't figure out why I didn't have the power to just push through it.
So you felt
Mhm.
kind of helpless and hopeless, but to some degree, you saw some degree of hope, so you registered for the summit. Like, I don't know what to do. Maybe coming to the summit might be able to help me.
There are very few. This is such an amazing opportunity to be here and, you know, share my experience because there are so few tools and spaces like the one that you guys have created. So
I
no
agree.
brainer to gravitate
Okay.
to.
No brainer. Well, I'm glad you centered yourself. So Marissa's going to talk to you a little bit more about your experiences at the summit.
Yeah, I would love to know if there are any things that stood out to you, like any special moments um, as you were entering, as you said, like the feelings that you had, and then attending the summit. Because I know, like even looking back for myself, there are so many sessions that changed my life, changed my perception of self and the power that I have internally. So, just for you, were there any special moments that stood out as you attended last year?
My most outstanding moment during the summit was the moment that actually centered me in what exactly was propelling me towards the stagnation. And so one of the sessions spoke about the grief of a toxic job. Um,
Mhm.
and I related that from my personal situation to going from this is my dream job to the disaster
Mhm.
and the devastation that did happen. And also, that same segment helped me to identify that I felt in danger as a Black woman. I had
Mhm.
admired, and grown to have personal relationships with these Black women who were fired so suddenly. And so I knew their stories as far as how I knew the effects that this had on their lives. One of the women was within 1 year of retirement. Um, just they were
Mhm.
they were totally caught off guard.
Yeah.
So that made me feel so vulnerable.
Mhm.
Like, my position is not at their, I wasn't an upper level executive. And so it made me feel a lack of job security. And it also took away my fairy tale that this job was
Wow.
perfect and, so wonderful. And I felt as a Black woman, again, most of the ladies who were fired were on the hiring panel during my interview. So I felt a sense of protection, the sense of protection that we feel usually in the company of other Black women. And that was
Mhm.
also taken away. So I had to
Yeah.
mourn those securities in that picture that I had, those false securities, and that picture that I had of the job and transition to seeing it in a new, different way.
Mm. Mhm. You spoke about so many topics. Grief, grief, right? That's a huge one.
Yeah.
And I can so relate to your experience of entering what you thought was your dream job and then kind of the rug being pulled out from underneath you, right? That can cause feelings of grief. Um, and I love that we're speaking about this openly, right?
Hmm.
That no, a job can also create feelings of grief. And I know Dr. Kamani has talked a lot about this on her channel too. Mhm.
Can absolutely relate to that. And, it's interesting. You also made mention of the trauma of witnessing people who look like you and people you respect and seeing them disrespected and seeing like the rug pulled from underneath them. And one woman was 1 year away from retirement. So when we think about many Black women in the workplace, we think that we got to stay at the job to retirement and, we got to stick it out and things are stable. But what we're saying here is that no job is really stable. And that's why it's important, like, just like you did. You were like, wait a minute, this job situation is not stable. I need to start getting my plans together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And I do want to ask about your business, right? So before you attended the summit and then after, because I know that you've launched a business, and I'll link a special thing that you have in the chat, 5-day plant-based starter plan. But yeah, anything you want to share around how the summit helped you make your plan, as Dr. Kamani mentioned, to eventually launch your business.
Mm, Releasing that feeling of shock and surprise and that feeling of just not knowing exactly what to do. It was like a light bulb after I got that recognition of what was going on within myself, and I was able to process it and release it. It was almost immediately within
Mhm.
a day or two after the summit and after the transformation that happened there, that I was able to get up and start moving towards a plan and a goal.
Mhm.
um so I love to travel, and my plan had always been to do that more. And so I just really sat and sprung into action and started attending courses and such that would help me be able to support myself as I got away from the job, since I wanted to create, a greater sense of my own security and live the life that I wanted to live.
So it sounds like you were able to identify this is why I'm feeling this way. So the grief process. And then you allowed yourself to really think about and dream, what is it that I really want for myself and how do I pursue that?
Right. I feel like in hindsight, because so we all have our personal dreams and visions. And then when the job came and it seemed like my dream job, and I'll say I had been off work. I had taken a sabbatical for the previous 5 years um, as a caregiver. So it was really a lot of excitement around the job, around re-entering the workforce, around helping others, so many others at once, which is something that I love to do. So I feel like that becoming so exciting and seemingly perfect clouded my vision of my personal dream. And I was able to regain that once the thought was clear, and I realized, well, this isn't this isn't really a dream because you're not in control of it.
Good point.
Mhm.
Good point.
Mhm.
Good point.
Mhm.
Good point. And what was it like to be in a community with all those other Black women? So I know you couldn't see, because I always say, Marissa always says that the summit attendees, nobody can see each other except for you can only see the summit speakers, right? But the
Mhm.
chat was popping.
Mhm.
So what was it like for you to be in community with over 300 Black women at the summit?
The chat was amazing, and most of all, you could feel a palpable energy of connection, of sisterhood, and even, or I guess I would say, especially through the speakers, there was just this permission to be, to, exist as ourselves and to share our vulnerabilities. And there was a connection in that we were hearing from other people who had experienced this thing. Because there can be a sense of isolation, of course, especially depending on the work environment, whether you have true conversations like these, or whether you have access to other Black women who are experiencing the same things. A lot of times that's not the case, which was my experience. So it was absolutely beautiful, and I formed some relationships, in the community that
You
still exist
did.
today. Yeah, so just even
Phenomenal.
though we didn't see each other, we bonded. Like those is some ladies from that summit that I met that day. I'm still
Wow.
in touch with all the time.
See that? I
Oh
didn't.
wow, we didn't know that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
seriously.
yeah, yeah.
Never met them before then. Now, three of the ladies, and one I speak with less often, so four I keep in touch with.
Oh my God. So you
Yes.
were able to build your own community from the summit. And I always talk about really the importance of surrounding ourselves with people who are supportive of us, who can pour into us as we're making these pivots, because we need support. It's a lot of fear or concerns or anxiety that might come up as we make the pivot. So you formed a community from Black women at the summit
And one of the ladies who I'm speaking of left her job on June 6th, like the month after the
after
summit.
the summit.
Wow.
Fast action. Okay. I love it. I love it. So, in addition to finding and building community at the summit, can you share with us how is your life different following your experiences of being in the summit? How is your life different?
My life is completely different because I completely made the shift. And I know Dr. Kimani, you mentioned a lot of times about a job being a means to an end. And, once you get this mindset really going, you have to shift your perspective of how you see it. So that definitely happened for me. I spent the next several months, just, planning my exit. And I feel like one of the most powerful things that I was actually reflecting on earlier today is that, and I guess this has come from my experience as an entrepreneur
Mhm.
too. It helped me to see that the value that we place on ourselves in general comes in large part from our service as employees
True.
sometimes.
Mm.
True.
And I was just thinking about this from an entrepreneurial perspective because I was doing a budget. And I
Mhm.
was thinking about how jobs pay us what's left over after they get their profit.
That's
Their
true.
bottom line is top priority.
That's
So,
absolutely.
yeah, so we walk around thinking, oh, my value and what I can give others. And I guess I'm speaking from the perspective of my courage that it gave me and the
Mm.
inspiration that it gave me to transition into entrepreneurship and
Hmm.
to be more free in releasing the job.
Hmm.
We have to realize that we're getting what's left over from somebody else's dream and from somebody else's
Within the
profit.
crumbs.
Yes,
Mm.
so we get to set our own value. And a big part of my journey has been empowering myself to, you know, release that mindset and say, I'm not limited to, this amount that I was given in the job market. I get to assess my own value, not based on what somebody else wants to give me that's left over, but
Yes.
let me see me as me and go out, knowing that I'm empowered to do this thing. So that that was a big part of it to have that mindset shift
Hmm.
and say this just and be liberated.
Yeah,
You
right. So it
see that?
changes your relationship of how you view work and also your value.
Yes,
So knowing that you have that inherent value so that you can start thinking about what is it that I want to do with my own life, and you have community who can help support you in that process. So it sounds like you came in a certain way and you left the summit a different way. And it sounds like that momentum has kind of kept with you almost a
absolutely.
year later.
Absolutely. It's just there's no space like this summit. The assurance, the reassurance, the assurance, the lifting up, the revelations, all those things. There's nothing like it.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
And we do want to ask, as we're winding down, the services that you offer. Yeah, and with plants over toxins, which I think is such an incredible name, and like I said at the beginning, like getting deeper into the reasons why our health is
Mm.
impacted at such a great level. So anything you want to share around the services you offer, how people can get into contact with you?
Thank you so much. So I'm pivoting my YouTube channel to serve this broader cause because, as I said before, I was only focusing on the energetic healing work. So my YouTube channel, watch out for that because the launch is coming up. But I do have a free offer for everyone just to get you started. In the free offer, it is helping you to start a mini detox. So you don't have to do a big grocery haul or anything. And so just want people to become acclimated to the benefit that even small changes can make.
Mm-hmm.
And I will be starting again the next week during the launch. I'll be starting a community for women to come and grow together and heal their chronic illnesses. And also, we'll touch on women's health issues. So, if you go ahead and sign up for the free offer, the free plan, you can get started doing your work, and then you'll be notified when it's time to join the community.
I love that. We need to be healthy as Black women because when we think about all the stress that we deal with, all the additional stress going on in the world right now, that just is like aging us tremendously, trying to keep up with everything. And I mentioned this on Alicia Bernice's channel yesterday, I think it was, that our wellness is our resistance. So the work you're doing is such a sign that we will be well. We have to be intentional and we have to do things to make sure that we're well. So I hope that everyone checks out the free gift that's being offered right there on the screen. It's also in the description section. So as we're winding down, if there's a Black woman who's watching this right now, but she might be on the fence about coming to the summit, what would you say to her?
I'll say our souls know. Our souls know exactly what we need. So even if you have, I told my story about before I even knew that I needed to attend, all of the signs were there. All
Mm,
of the access was there. So if you have even an inkling that this is a thing for you, that's your soul telling you that you need it. Please be obedient to your soul because this amazing summit only happens once a year. Well,
yeah,
there's a replay, but there's nothing like the power and the energy of being together with your sisters and being able to sit in support and have that live guidance. And, you know, plants over toxins is not solely about plant based diet. Toxins are a whole lot of things, as Dr.
mhm,
Kimani just said. And
mhm,
if your job is killing you, literally killing you,
mhm,
mind, body, and soul, and all you have to do is go to a summit to get help to be liberated and see others who've also been liberated or are on your same journey,
mhm.
why not? It's just
Wow.
such an amazing tool.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. And I just think about when we think about our soul is talking to us, our soul, when we have that feeling, that's God whispering to us. And are we paying attention to what God is whispering to us? So that was a beautiful example of you listening to what your soul was saying. You took action. Now you've created a whole new life and you're in community with other Black women who are there to support you.
Yes, all beautiful
Beautiful.
things.
I love it. I love it. I love
Yes.
it. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much for
Thank
sharing your
Latrentis.
you.
story.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. And yes, I put the link to register for the summit in the description section as well as in the chat. Again, it's happening online May 16th through 18th. We have over 20 Black women speakers coming to share their lived experience, their professional advice about how to make your exit strategy out of a job that's not serving you or a toxic job to reclaim your freedom, your well being, your sense of peace. All these things that we're taught are kind of like frivolous, right? They're really important, as Latrenta shared, to our health, our
Yeah,
very health and well being. We deserve that. So thank you so
absolutely.
much for being here.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Everybody
for having me.
register. Register, register,
Yes.
register.
Bye, y'all. Thank you for being here.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
Bye.